Welcome, I'm Joe Cordeiro. Welcome to Trident up here in Portland, Maine. I'm gonna tie the flatwing style flat Mack. It's one of the favorite bait flies that I use. Both stripers and mackerels swim in the same water column, and boy do stripers love eating mackerel. So join me on this adventure tying the flat Mack in the flatwing style. Well, welcome folks, and I'm going to start the process of tying the flatwing flat Mack. And the process will take through descriptions of the actual product, of course, so you understand the reasoning behind why I've chosen it. So the first thing, of course, is the hook. A Shaughnessy shanked hook is a short shanked hook. And most of all the flatwings, with some exceptions, of course, I love that short shanked hook. The industry has been able to maintain similarities from manufacturer to manufacturer of the length of the shank. The differences, this is an Eagle Claw L253 3/0, and this is the Ahrex SA270 Blue Water 3/0. And you can see the difference in thickness, both steel-plated hooks that pretty much have the same length, but they may have some subtle gap differences, as well as the barb. One's a micro barb in the SA270 and the larger barb, but the hook gap pretty much is standard in the industry. Some do have a little bit of an up on the point. So today we're going to tie on that Ahrex SA270, and we're going to put that in a Regal vise. It does have the bulldog bite. I love this vise because no matter when I hold it in the vise, I know it's not going to be loose. So Regal does a great job with maintaining integrity with your hook. Next is the thread that I'm going to use. This is Uni Thread 3/0. To me, this is a vital thread to use in any flatwing application. And when I say vital, it's because the thread does separate, the denier does clearly separate when relaxed. And the relaxation of the thread tends to marry itself with the material that you're laying on top of the hook shank. Remember, we're laying material on top of a 1/32 thick hook. Well, of course, from a standpoint of a 3/0, and even thinner when you get down to the smaller hooks. But the relaxation of marrying the material to the hook shank is vital to maintain the integrity of the fly, that it hovers and reacts and moves in the water column in the flatwing style. So I'm going to take the thread and I'm going to go right behind the eye of the hook. And I'm going to go side by each all the way down the hook shank, making sure that the hook is pretty much covered with the thread. And the reason for it is pretty simple, is that hook is very slippery. And so we want to add this thread as you go down the hook shank so that you can have a rougher spot to place the material as something to grab onto. And what's really vital is you have to make sure you stop your thread right before the tip of the hook. That is right where it aligns as it hangs the bobbin, so the thread sits right in front of the tip of the hook. This is your datum point. This is where you're going to be utilizing a set point on the hook shank so that you know where everything is going to line up and it's going to swing at this point. So let's get started. I love to go through a little bit of the reasoning behind bucktail. Every tyer generally has a good understanding of bucktail, but I'm going to select my bucktail from the base. And the base is where it has somewhat of a little bit of a crunchability or hollowness to it. Not as much as deer spinning here. So what I'm going to do is take a pinch and always cut close to the hide when you're taking any deer here from the bucktail. And what you're going to do is, when you pinch that material, you're going to select where the smaller material is going to be pulled out, because you don't want that bulkiness. You want to be able to make your first platform. This is, one of the first fundamentals of taking support of your feathers that hang out the rear of the fly. And you have to maintain that the material doesn't go underneath the hook shank. And so The length of material is somewhat crucial when you're looking at the overall proportions of the fly. So I generally like to make it 2x the length of the hook. So I measure it up, and then that's about 2x the length of the hook. And then I cut at a very, very severe angle. And that severe angle gives me and allows me to maintain an upward mounting of the material using a pinch move 3 times, holding that material in place, pinching the material as well as the hook shank, and you can see it rides up. And as you want to get it so that it not only rides up, but also spreads out to act as a support, your index finger should be placed underneath, press down with your thumb and give it a little bit of a roll, but maintaining the integrity of the material staying on top of the hook shank. And then once you have it flared out, looks like a witch's broom, an old straw broom, then you come back and up cinch and come over and clean up and gather up all that material and come back to that datum point. So now you have pretty much all the material sitting on top, which you want, and it's up so that it supports not only the feathers, but acts as an anti-fouling device for us casters that get really excited when we see breaking fish and we open up the loop of our cast. The next that's when you're doing multi-feather flatwings, and I have a little bit of a rule, you can use just bucktail for a single feather, or sometimes even 2, depending upon the length of the feather you're using. But I always, when multi-feathers are in play, generally 3 and above, I grab a cape. And the difference between a cape and a saddle, most tyers who tie understand that the saddle is the flowing portion of the rooster, and then the cape is where these have a stiffer, more thicker stem that will allow you to use as a support for feathers going up into, for a support. So what I'll do is I'll pluck from the middle part, and again I try to select a couple feathers that are wide and webby and have that stiff stem to it, and make sure that the feather is straight, and I use that as a support, and I clear out some of the fluff that's in the base of that stem, and I come in, size it up so that the feather itself convex up like so, and the length is towards the tail end of the bucktail. It could be a little bit longer, and then you come in and do a pinch moves just so that you're utilizing the stem as your straight datum on top, and then you come back and really cinch down all the way down the hook shank, securing it to the hook shank, letting it be one with the hook shank, and you come back to that same datum point, let it hang. So you have this feather, clear out the stem in the front of the eye, and you have that one feather that is convex up. Next, we're going to grab some feathers, all pretty much Cordeiro flatwing style that Ewing supplies to us. And we have very specific colors that we like to use in the flat Mack. This fly I've developed a long time ago. It was one that consistently, without a doubt, caught many, many stripers. And I truly believe that the color coordination of it is pretty much crucial. And you can see that in this fly, once we get to building it out, you'll see that the layering of white with yellow and American Beauty color is very crucial to matching up to what a tinker mackerel looks like in the water. And I believe that as close as you can, as we say in fishing, match the hatch, I would say, match that bait that we're using for striped bass. The first feather that I'm going to use is a nice white saddle. This is a whole flatwing Cordeiro saddle. And I want to get the first one to be wide and not super wide and webby like Schlappen, but wide to create a nice profile that's going to be able to give it that tail base that we need for the mackerel. And of course, selecting the feather is one that you have to determine the width, the length, but the selection is very crucial when it comes to you want it to hover correctly in the water column. And so the feather that we're going to select is something that looks like a sword. You can see it has perfect undulation just in my hand here. But what's really crucial is understanding that the transition from a real thick to thin stem is where you want to trim away to create a joining point onto the hook shank. Less is more. And I mean it truly, that the material that you lay on top of the hook is going to benefit you to secure it with the hook shank. So you cut clearly in front where it transitions, and then you pluck off about 1/4 of an inch of that fluff. And this fluff is going to give us our pillow, and you create a dubbing noodle using that fluff that you just plucked off that feather. And what I do is I just come up and just push right straight down on top of the hook shank, and it creates this little platform that is a pillow. Just like when you place your head at night on your pillow and when you go to sleep, it's going to cradle, your head is going to sit into that pillow and cradle it so you're comfortable and you can go to sleep. Well, the same thing with this feather. We're going to marry the material, cross the fluff of the material, lay it concave down right on top of that convex white saddle. And I'm going to marry it in a manner that I'm only going to do one pinch move. And you're going to say, why one pinch move? It's because if you want to move it or shake it, you just remove it and it easily comes off. But the uniqueness is the fact that the thread, in its state of relaxation, spreads out and grabs and marries the materials together and utilize that natural bonding of the marabou itself sitting right on top of the hook. You can pretty much manipulate it as well just to get it to sit properly, but generally speaking, it works every time when you just give it that one little wrap to sit right on top. Next, you want to enhance your fly with some mylar flash. Again, I love using flat mylar flash because, simply put, the mylar doesn't twist like a crystal flash. Crystal flash is round and it does tend to want to roll. Anything round tends to roll. So I use this flat mylar regular flash. And I'm going to use some gold because the next feather I'm going to put on is a yellow feather. And to enhance the yellow, I only grab a couple of these strands of gold. And again, 2 strands, and I fold it over. And I seem to like not having to wrap around the thread. I just take and cut it in half. I got 4 little strands here. I lay it right on top. Again, a pinch move, keeping it so that it sits right on top of that feather, nice and flat. And then the next feather, as I mentioned, is a yellow. And I like to grab something that, again, has that wide and webbiness to it, matching up to pretty much the same length. You can go slightly longer, but I like to try to give it that same match. Again, cutting away, there's no need for another pillow, but you cut away where it transitions from thick to thin. Clear out a little bit of the fluff so you have the stem to hold on to place it properly. And look at that, that size feather just matches up perfectly on top of that white. I hold it in place, pinch move. Again, less is best. One little wrap, and you can see this is not going anywhere, sitting on top. And the uniqueness of this is that, think of it from a mechanical standpoint. I'm not going to use any special sauce, no wax, no UV lamp, no welding torch. I don't have to put any glasses on. Basically, it's the mechanics of bonding the material to the hook shank, utilizing the strength of the thread, that 3/0 uni thread, and making sure that I'm sitting on the same pillow in the same spot. And how I do that is through the datum of knowing that that datum line is right in front of the tip of the hook. And if you tend to fall off your pillow, there's no problem with not either removing the thread or just coming back with another wrap and setting it so that it's right in front of the tip of the hook. And the reason I say in front of the tip of the hook, do not impede into the back. You'll click that thread on top of that hook point, and clearly you'll snap the thread. The next thing is I like to do is do some kind of manipulation with the feathers so that you can manage it in a way that as you're building it, you want to be able to, as I'm manipulating, keep it straight on top. I grab an American Beauty feather from Flatwing that you can buy here at Trident. And again, I try to select something that's got that nice wide and webbiness, because when I look at a Tinker mackerel, it has that little this color, this pigmented color, clearly in the base of the tail of that bait. And again, I try to select something that's got the right length and the width, that sword shape, that gives me that color coordination when you place it on top of that yellow, giving it the nice size. I trim away at the fat part of the stem, and then I mount it. And then I enhance it with a pinch move with a little bit of red flat mylar, because what happens when you take red and yellow does create an orangey color, of course, and you want to be able to enhance that as it swings over in the water column, enhance that pink color, the American Beauty color. It's a darker, more has a little bit of violet in it, and it really stands out because of the mackerel tail has that in there. And then next, I'm going to put on another white saddle to encompass that red. And again, I love to then come a little bit longer to give it that tail action that's in the mackerel. Again, clear out the fat part of the stem, come in across the top. And you can see when you lay the white on top of the American Beauty, you can see the pinks come out, and that red really enhances the color on top of the yellow. And that's what happens in the water column. When you build it properly, these feathers will hover because you're selecting these flat wings. They're not skinny dry fly feathers. They will hover correctly in the water column as you swing it through a rip, or you actually fish it in deeper water. Actually will undulate freely at that cantilever center point where the pillow is. And then next, I'm going to add to enhance the backbone of the mackerel, which is the predominant colors. When you look at the mackerel, it has that mixture of Chartreuse and blue Grizzly. So what I like to do is I like to add a brighter Chartreuse on top of the Grizzly, and we have that first with the blue. You can see this bright blue Grizzly. You can grab one that has the right width and length, and I emphasize a sword shape, and one that goes with a little bit broader. You lay that. Cut away the thick part of the stem, lay it right down on top of the white. You don't have to go all the way down the end. You just want to be able to get that color coordination with a pinch move right on top. Again, you can manipulate it so that, again, it's sitting right on top of the pillow. Then I enhance it with some blue flash. The Silver Doctor blue or even a navy blue is fine to utilize. I specifically like this lighter Silver Doctor blue tone that makes it really stand out a little bit more than a darker navy blue, but it's a matter of just preference. And you can see it blends in really nicely with that Silver Doctor blue Grizzly that we get from Cordeiro's Flatwing. And then I add a bright Chartreuse Grizzly. Again, selecting something that's wide and webby because the backside of the mackerel you got that broad base. It's not a skinny bait like a sand eel, so you want to get something that has a wider base to it, so you can create that broader back. And this might be a little bit too wide, but I think it'll be sufficient. Matching it up with the tips, and then cutting and trimming away, again, the fat part of the stem, laying it down on top. And then I think I put in a little bit of purple on top here, because I'm going to use some lavender to enhance the colors. Again, it's matter of preference. Some like using a deep purple, or I love this lavender kind of color. Get it right on top. Okay. And then next, I grab some Bill's Body Braid. This braid is made with rayon, so it's really very, 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 very tough. And I cut off about, a 10-inch piece. And then I mount it to the underside using a pinch move, keeping it so that it's underneath and stuck to the underside of the hook shank. And then I get the material out of the way. And once I do that, I set everything in motion to cinch lightly to keep all the material. And at the same time, the torque that you're pinch moving is going to gather up as you go down the shank to behind the eye. And you want to be able to keep it all pretty much flat. So you hold on and up cinch and keep driving your thread, and you pinch behind the pillow. And what you're doing is you're gathering up all the material and tweaking it so that you're coming basically towards you as you come over the top with your thread. And you come in behind and you cinch behind the pillow. As you can see, I'm now going way behind and I'm in front of the tip of the hook. Cinch up, then bring my thread forward. Give it a little bit of a snugness here so it's not rolling all over the place. And then I stop and I clean out all the excess material that's right behind the eye of the hook so I can have a nice taper. Okay, then I grab the braid that I had stuck underneath, come over the top and do a couple of soft wraps. Hold the material again, counteract and up cinch, really haul in, cinch it right over the top, holding the material so it doesn't roll around. And then I take the braid, and you can see I wind it down. You can see the torque alone is really wanting that material to roll all over the place. And I really make sure that it becomes one with the hook shank as I pull and palmer over this thread, the braid, to where I stop my thread behind the eye of the hook. And that point of reference that I stop at is clearly one that is the distance from the tip of the hook to the back of the barb, from where the front of the eye to where I stop my thread. And that's right there in front of you all the time. So you have to separate yourself from creeping on the head of that hook. Let me clean that out. So as I build this up, now I have to transition into a nice body. And you can see here, this fly is already starting to take shape with the backside already completed. Now I got to build it so that the profile of the bait then fills in with the back of the fly, so that this tinker mackerel will come alive in shape in the water. So the best thing I generally like to look at is, when you take the sweet spot of the bucktail where they're nice long fibers, you select the ones that are going to give you the length that is longer than, slightly longer than your support bucktail that you placed originally to support the feathers. So I grab a nice long bucktail again. I trim very close to the hide. I take a pinch of material and I grab the tips and pull out the short ones, and I set those aside for a smaller fly at a later time. And then I pretty much look at, the total length, and I size it up so that it goes beyond slightly with the support bucktail. And I come back in and I trim again at that very severe angle. And that severe angle sits it so that you can then roll it so that it comes 3/4 of the way around the hook shank. And what I like to do in the pinch move is do it about 3 times. Nice pinch move, hold it in place, gathers up. If you miss some material, you can see, and there's a brown one in there. Let me remove that. I want that nice belly to be performed, so I get it so that it rides right up, and I come in and I just give it a little tweak to roll it slightly 3/4 around, and I come back in and pinch, up cinch and over, up cinch and over, and gather up that material. And then I come back to that same point. All that material should be underneath and should be secured. A little bit of fibers will come out, but that's fine. So you can see that it's vital that you have this shape creating the underside of that macro bait, and by covering pretty much the hook point all the way to the gap of that hook. Then what I do is I need to enhance it. So I grab some lavender. Sometimes I'll grab some American Beauty to color as well to enhance the side or the cheeks. And what I'll do is I'll grab, and sometimes I'll blend, but from a recipe standpoint, it's sufficient just to grab some nice, and I'm not talking a lot, I'm talking like a slight amount. And I'm not going to count fibers. I'm not going to say, oh, only put 10 fibers in. I like to just grab just a pinch, just to enhance, literally enhance the side cheeks so that it has that little standout of the color that goes down all the way down to the support bucktail. And I just put it along the cheeks, and I spread it out a little bit just to give it that nice little color. Sometimes what I'll do as well, if I want to create a real broad base, I'll put some white in behind it as well to create that illusion of a big or wider bait. But this is a tinker mackerel. They tend to be not as wide as a mature mackerel. So I just come in along the sides again, create that, and spread it out a little bit to create the width I need, clean it up, and come back. And then I'll do the same to the top. And then I'll put some lavender to get it to have that color tone that I want. Put it right on the top as well. And then I'll grab some olive just to get it to stand up, because I'm going to be placing 3 feathers on top of this olive to enhance the head all the way to the back portion of the fly. Again, I grab a pinch of just the olive, cutting close to the hide. And I don't need much material at all to get it so that clean out all of the small fibers that are in the bucktail natural taper for it. Then once I get it all set in place, I come back in with the same point, cut at a severe angle, place with a pinch move. 3 wraps will hold it, give it a little roll, and you can see how it's now creates this head shape. That beak of that mackerel is pretty prominent, which is perfect. Then I'll grab a short Silver Dr. Blue that's got some width to it and some length. I'm basically blending now, making sure that the backside of the mackerel is now blending across. You can see how it creates the illusion of a broader bait. And what I do is I put a slight little pillow, very, very slight noodle, just to have a good landing spot on top of the head here with the pillow like I did earlier. And if I want, I can clear out some of that fluff so it's not so wide and bushy. And come in, that length is perfect. Come in over the top just to hold it in place. No flash is needed at this point. All I do is then add another Chartreuse short one to enhance the mackerel coloration in it, the natural color. No other pillow is needed. Match it right back up, right on top. And then I'll grab, because it's a little bit darker on the top of the bait, I'll grab an olive. And I generally, you don't have to go as wide as the bait that the feathers that I put on earlier to create the bait. But what I do is a little bit narrower just to create that top portion and I bring it so that it goes a little bit longer down towards the end. Again, cut out the fat part of the stem because the fat part of the stem absorbs all the energy, and place it concave down like all the others. Across. And once it all sits in nice and straight on top, what I do is I come in, cinch, pinch move, clean out those little stems, come back with my head, and I go side by each all the way down to create that nice taper. A little bit bigger head because you want to be able to have that head pronounced on the mackerel. And I pluck out some of the material. Make sure you don't hook yourself when you do that. Believe me, I've done it many times. Stuck my fingers with the hook. So next, now I want to create, and stripers inherently hit the head. And the reason they hit the head is because they need to swallow head first, because that's what they do. So they're predominantly attacking the head. And what's more knowingly for them is they look for the eyes. So what I do is add a little bit extra to this bait. And what I mean extra, I take the wing portion feather of the jungle cock and give it that pectoral fin. If you'll notice on the mackerel, the little side pectoral fins are pretty predominant. They really flare out. That I believe those there really give them that quickness to turn and move their body in a manner that's very quick. So those little, I like to create that with using the feathers that are in the wing casing. And I select ones that have a nice shape to it, again, to create that pectoral fin. And I go ones that have a little bit of a point, and I just take out two. Let me pull these out. And I size them up because I want the tips to be pretty much in line with the tip of the hook, which is great. And then I just peel away, and cut. And then I lay it right down across with the material, one little wrap. And if it does not want to sit properly along the side or the cheeks, and I use the stem of the feather to line up with the eye, gathers up. I do two wraps just to hold it in place. I do the front side and then I do the back side. Do the same thing, hold it in place, line it up. Two wraps, keeping it so that it creates that pectoral, and I pull it to give it the point. It matches up. And again, I think it's where that fell off because it wasn't lined up properly with the rear side. It's just a little bit of a challenge just to get it so that it lines up properly. And you just pull it through. Because you don't want a lopsided, even though I think stripers really don't care. But for me, I like to have it just right. Okay. Then I go forward, trim, and trim. Come with my head. Oh, it's great. And then I put the eyes in. Now the eyes, I use the jungle cock feather, and I try to select one that's the two that are going to fit well within and not cover the pectoral feathers that I just placed. And I have a little trick I want to show you. These are grade C. They have a little bit of splits to them. And what I do is I grab some of this Wonder Wax, this Overton's Wonder Wax, which is fantastic. And I swipe through the wax and tighten up. And it helps me place the jungle cock feather as well onto the specific point. It has a tackiness to it, but yet it creates this beautiful feather because the poor bird, that's why it's a grade C, those feathers are split. And I come in and make sure that that tip is showing. Pull it. Excellent. Give it two slight wraps. Do the same thing to the back side. And you can see the tip of that pectoral is perfectly placed. Same thing over here in the front side. And that wax helps it stay in place. And I don't put too much pressure to get it to flare, but I get enough so that I can now come down and cover it. Sometimes what happens is the thread wants to creep with the wax, but you get it so that you don't want to cover the pupil or the whites of the eye. And you come forward, trim behind. Make sure you don't trim your thread. Come forward, and then you clean it up with a nice tapered thread base. And then I grab my whip finish tool and I put in 2 nice finish whips to it, and I go slowly behind about 4 or 5 wraps and do the same thing coming back down to behind the eye of the hook. And to finish it off, some customers prefer wax, but I prefer putting on just a lacquer. Sally Hansen's Double Duty is my preference because it really holds the thread. I'll do 2 or 3 coats on it after it dries. And there we have it. I mean, we have a great bait, flat Mack, pretty much one that you can see the shape take place, and then you can trim about 1 inch behind the last feather. You can see has the great profile on the top, has that movement that you want, undulating movement, and then the thickness of the belly with that nice lavender sides and the cheek that predominant in those Tinker mackerel. And that's it, folks. That's the finished fly. Well, there we have it. There's the flat Mack flat wing fly. All these feathers are here at Trident. The flat wing dedicated Cordeiro flat wing feathers can be bought online. And if you have any questions, please reach out to the team at Trident. They'll gladly help you out. And again, thank you so much for spending the time on the adventure of tying the flat Mack flat wing fly.